So I am the lucky one that gets to introduce our first speaker today. Carrie Wheeler is the COO of Liquid Web, which is the Chief Operating Officer. In this role, she has responsibility for all critical revenue and customer-facing functions, including sales, service delivery, and implementation, customer care and technical support, network, security, and data center operations, and customer retention. Carrie, I'm actually surprised you can be here with all of that responsibility. Prior to this role, Carrie held several IT leadership positions at CBeyond, AT&T, and MCI Communications. In these previous roles, she held leadership positions across a variety of organizational functions. Across her career, Carrie is focused on three things: bringing new products and services to the market, solving business problems with technology solutions, and scaling organizations to fuel growth. She is passionate about customer service, leadership, and developing her team and colleagues. Carrie complements her diverse set of skills by giving back to the community where she lives and works. And I would also like to say I'm lucky enough to call her a fellow Sooner, because she is from the state of Oklahoma originally. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Carrie Wheeler to get us started.
Thanks, Lindsay. And the reason I can be here, as everyone knows, is because I have an amazing team of people around me, including yourself, Lindsay, and Adrian. So just to get us started, thank you guys for your hard work putting this webinar together. You guys have done an amazing job and put together just a fantastic lineup. And I think it just shows your passion to helping, our clients and our customers, and even those agencies out there that aren't our clients and customers. And that shows a real passion to give back to the community. So thank you for your help. To everyone out there, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We've been working on this webinar for a couple of months now. We couldn't be more excited. We know that your time is super valuable, and we just really appreciate you making the time to participate in today's session. We couldn't be more excited to share this lineup with you, and just the fact that you're taking time to learn more about the things you can do to improve the success of your business. It shows real initiative, leadership, and the willingness to innovate. A little bit of background as we were pulling together this summit, we wanted to construct a series of sessions that provided real actionable information and advice that can help you grow your business in a meaningful way. And as with most things, the simplest approach got us the most excited. We use a very simple framework in our business, and we use it repeatedly. And I've used it in a number of organizations, large and small. And I've even used it in my personal life with a lot of success. And this simple framework that my friend and my current boss and CEO, Jim Geiger, taught me is you have to really think about what to stop, start, and keep. And again, I've used this framework in many different situations, and that's really how we started thinking about pulling together valuable content for this series. And so as you grow and scale your business, it's simply mission critical to be purposeful, really purposeful, not just about what you start doing, but also about what you stop doing. And so the agenda and the panel we pulled together will get your creative juices flowing and hopefully get you on a path to $1 million in revenue and more. We have a set of panelists who've been exactly where you've been, wondering what the things they need to do to ensure further success. What are the habits, the focus, and the decision processes, and identifying what some things are that you should stop doing and distracting you from reaching your goals. And so that's the structure of today's session. So without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, Lindsay talked about some of my passions, and one of my passion area is helping organizations, both large and small, learn how to scale their business. And it's like, say what? Why would you want to scale your business? That seems like a weird place to start. But really, at the end of the day, scale is all about the ability to handle more work, AKA more clients, more sales, more revenue, in a cost-effective manner. And it's important to think about scale no matter the size of your business, whether you're just getting started, you're a growing agency, or you're already a fairly decent sized agency and want to go even further. And the reason scale is so important is because organizations who can't scale can't grow, and it's as simple as that. It's getting more efficient, more effective, and then investing those efficiencies in growing your business. And as I said at the intro, and some of you may not have heard, really, when you think about the fact that you need to scale your business in order to grow your business, scale can be pretty darn sexy. So let's talk about what my view of the 5 must-dos to scale your business are. There's 100 things that you have to do to grow a business. But when you really sit down and think about how you're going to scale your business, there's really 5 fundamentals, in my opinion, that will help you do this most aggressively. First, start with the end in mind. What do you need to accomplish in the short, medium, and long term? And what's your end game? We'll talk a little bit more about that. Relentlessly focus on what matters. Don't let days or weeks fly off the calendar doing activities that don't add value. And you'd be surprised how many of us get caught in that trap. Number 3, innovate, period. We're going to talk a little bit about how innovation can be a pet peeve of mine, but really it's all about focusing on new ways of doing business. 4, build the right team. Large and small, it matters. And a team is a fluid ecosystem of resources. It's not just about hiring and firing. And finally, 5, and probably my most favorite, is inspect what you expect. As the old saying goes, trust but verify. You have to know the metrics that matter to your business. So let's keep going. First, start with the end in mind. Let me just say this. First, no matter what the time period is, you have to write it down. Let me say it again, write it down. And at the beginning of every month, review what you wrote down last month and update it and make edits. Take a few minutes to reflect on it and update it so that you continue to achieve your goals with the end in mind. The first step is to think about, what do I have to accomplish this month to meet my commitments? We all have commitments that we've made, whether it's to our boss, to our clients, to our families, to our communities. Write down what you've committed to do this month and make sure you're on track to achieve that. The second is, what do I want to look back on this year and to be able to consider it a success? Am I on track? And if not, what do I need to do to make it happen? One of the things we do here at Liquid Web on my team is every year at the beginning of the year, we do an exercise where I say, okay, guys, at the end of the year when we're at the Christmas party, what do we want to raise our glasses to and say that we're super proud we accomplished? And we write those down. And every year at the Christmas party, we raise our glasses and we say, this is what we're proud we accomplished. And by the way, this is where we want to either do better next year, or this is the new milestone we want to achieve. And if you've written that down and you look at it every month, you'll be in a better position to get to that Christmas party and feel like you've had a very successful year. The 3 to 5 year, the dreaded 3 to 5 year. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Who the heck really knows the answer to that question? Honestly, most of us don't. But here's what we can generally answer. What are the experiences that I would like to have gained? What are the accomplishments that I would like to say that I've achieved? Again, in my business and in my personal life. What do I want those around me to say that they've accomplished and they've achieved? And when I'm reminiscing and I'm looking back on the past 5 years, what do I want to look at my friends and colleagues and say, wow, can you believe we did that? So instead of thinking about what do you want to be or what does your business want to be in 3 to 5 years, frame it in that series of questions and start writing it down. And you'll find that month over month as you do that and review it, you'll edit it and it will get pretty crisp over time. And finally, the end game. This is just as important as the three previous points. It's really important for small businesses and agencies. Do you want to have this business for your entire career? Is this a lifestyle business? Or is this a business you want to grow and sell at some point so that you can use the earnings to fund another passion? Do you want to grow it big enough so that you're a viable player and you can merge with a competitor and run an even bigger business? What is it that you dream your end game to be? And don't be afraid to say that you have an end game. We're all in business for a number of reasons: to find meaningful work and to support our families and to build equity in our lives. So embrace that and build your end game. It's also important to have these things in mind because as you go about meeting people, networking, which by the way, you'll hear about more later this afternoon from Chris Lemma, you'll find that you're able to talk about these things and opportunities will present themselves and you'll be able to more quickly and articulately take advantage of opportunities that come your way because you will have already identified what you want to accomplish in these time spans. And it'll bring opportunities to you in a much more effective way that you didn't even see coming. Let's go to number 2, relentlessly focus on what matters. This one seems obvious, but you'd be really surprised how much of your day and your week is spent on activities that are not directly tied to adding value to your business. Do me a favor, and after this, look at your calendar for the next week and maybe even the next month. And take 5 categories of where you spend your time and then ask yourself, am I spending 75% or more of my time on what drives my business forward? Most likely the answer to that is no. And that's where you need to start thinking about what you need to stop doing or start doing to change that. A real quick story. One of my directs from a prior company had responsibility for reducing customer churn, and we weren't making progress. And I had him sit down and do this very exercise, and he came back and found that 75% of his time was focused on employee issues and not figuring out what would reduce customer churn. So we sat down and said, if you rebuilt your calendar, what meetings would you change? What approach would you take? What new tools would you implement? And he changed that. And over a 6-month period, he reduced his time on employee issues to 15%. And he identified new products and services that we could offer and new win-back campaigns. And as a result of that, by the end of the year, he was promoted to new, bigger opportunities. Now that's an example in a bigger company, but that same principle applies to all size businesses. So really focus on what matters. Are you spending 75% on your customers, what they want and what's important to them? Your products, how does your product and service align? What needs to evolve about your products to solve your customers' problems? And then your value proposition. What makes you different? What makes you special? What makes you the reason that clients will come to you versus your competitors? These are the things you need to be spending 75% of your time on. Innovate, period. I mentioned in my opening that sometimes, hey, you need to innovate is my pet peeve. And the reason is because innovation can be kind of nebulous, right? People think of innovation as I need to build the next iPhone. And that's not really where the great stuff of innovation happens. What I've learned is that innovation comes in many forms and is critical to scaling your business. Think about innovation this way. It's the introduction of something new, right? That something can be anything. It's large and small, and it's not just new products. It can be new systems, new processes, new marketing messages, new markets, right? It can be a new presence online. So innovation is really about looking at all aspects of your business, your products, your processes, your systems, your people, and finding ways day over day, month over month to improve on all of those. And that all is innovation. And finally, on innovation, it's important to focus on the future. A lot of us get caught in the trap of worrying about what's happened in the past. The most important thing you can do about the past is learn from it. And once you've learned, wrap those learnings up, put them in your future plan, and then rip off that rear view mirror. Nobody innovates by looking backward, so focus on the future. Build the right team. Again, this is super important for businesses of all size. You can be a single entrepreneur or you can be a large corporation. But if you don't have the right team around you, you're not going to be successful. The first part of this is knowing what you stand for, what your business stands for, and then surrounding yourself with people and entities who share your values and goals. And so I'll say it again, write it down. If you haven't written down what's important to you and what your values and goals are, it makes it a lot harder to explain to people that you want to surround yourself with. Employees are important, and there's no reason in today's technology, remote workers and globalization, that you have to hire and fire every resource. Do some research. Find your peers and share resources. Use online capabilities. There's a ton of opportunity out there to find new employees, but also to find consultants and contractors that can be part of your fluid ecosystem that you can treat like employees and motivate them in the same way. And a word about partners, right? Pick vendors to offload administrative and non-value added activities, right? Those things that are sucking up your time but aren't driving your business forward. Find vendors to do that. But find partners that share your values and goals. Find partners that add value to your product or your offering and vet them. Make sure they share your values and goals. And so remember that there's a difference between vendors and partners. They're both important in your ecosystem, but make sure you know the difference and go after both of them. And for those of you looking for investors or who have investors, choose wisely and take your time. Whether this is a family member, venture capital, a bank loan, make sure that your investors share your goals and values as well, and don't jump too fast. Capital is a hard thing to come by, but it's an even harder thing to pay back when you have investors that don't share your vision and goals. And finally, focus on the outcomes. This is kind of a theme I've been talking a little bit about throughout this talk, but you need to focus on outcomes, not activity. Activity is a time suck, but focusing on outcomes means you're going to achieve your objectives this month, this year, 3 to 5 years, and for your end game. And so the first thing is sit down and think about what's the only metric that matters. Now, that seems a little ridiculous, right? There's lots of metrics that matter, but what's the one thing? What's the one metric that if you exceed that metric is going to help you achieve your annual, your 3 to 5 year, and your end game? And it could be anything, and it's yours. Is it revenue? Is it monthly earnings? Is it the number of active clients you have? Define it, know it, measure it, and most importantly, share it with others and make sure you know exactly how you collect the data on the metric that matters. And don't be afraid of the data. If you're a strategist or a creative type or a developer, you may not be a data analyst, and that's okay. There's lots of them out there. And it's important that you find someone who can help you with this and help you get into the analytics. You really should spend part of your 75% on knowing the data that drives your business. And it doesn't really matter what the tool is at the end of the day. It's a tool that is comfortable for you. But you need to know your key performance indicators that drive the only metric that matters. And you need to collect the data, review it, and trend it. And again, these are yours and they're what's important to your business, not anyone else's. What's my average lead time to close a deal? What's my average deal size? What does my average deal size need to be to win? What's in my current pipeline? What percentage of my team's time is spent on service versus sales? And really important to me is, why do I win and why do I lose? Make sure you gather the data on those points so that you can focus them on outcomes. And then finally, make sure you exhibit discipline. And what this really means to me is set up a mechanism to meet with your team, whoever that team may be, and review the data and your performance to outcomes. And make it important to you. Set it up at a time where you're not going to miss it. And if you miss it and reschedule, that you're always present and you're actively engaged in the conversation. You're not distracted by your phone. You're not doing email. You're asking questions and driving the conversation forward based on the data. It's mechanics and it's consistency. The only other thing I would say here is you're never ever done. It's an evolving ecosystem of information, and it's always changing, and your questions are always changing that force you to gather more data. Embrace that. It can actually be a little bit of fun. And I'll just close by saying small business is not for the faint of heart. I grew up with a father who ran his small business, and he was on point 24/7. It's for the brave, the patient, and the persistent. And it's for the people who want to overcome any obstacles and create something on their own. So I'm going to wrap up now. We might have time for a couple of questions, but I'll just remind you by saying that to scale your business is important to grow your business, and that scale can be sexy. And the 5 things to keep in mind: start with the end in mind. Really focus on what matters. Be relentless. Innovate, period, in small and big ways. Build a team around you, and inspect what you expect. That's it for me, Lindsay. Again, thank you, everyone. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Carrie. That was great information.
That was amazing.
Yeah. So our friend Dave Braun is over here in the chat, and he made a couple of points that I just wanted to bring up for discussion. If anyone else has a question for Carrie about what she talked about, or just what's in her vast wheelhouse of knowledge, pop those in the chat and we'll put her on the spot a little bit. But Dave was talking about how your systems continue to change in your business as your business changes. And he specifically said, it changes when you have 3 websites under maintenance compared to 100 websites under maintenance. So I liked that point and I wanted to bring it up. And he also said that he's thinking about like highlighting a new system each month. So maybe one month he can focus on marketing, another month focus entirely on his team. And I just kind of wanted to throw that out there to you and see what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in that. I would say, I think there's a lot of creative ways that you can take these 5 things and figure out a monthly specialty if that's what you want. Mm-hmm. I would say, as you think about your annual plan, you could even make it a quarter, right? This quarter, we're going to focus on new processes and new systems under our innovation goal. This quarter, we're really going to focus on building the team because I have more pipeline than I can handle and I need to outsource some things. Or this month, hey, listen, maintenance of all these websites that I have under management, I'm spending more of my time doing that than I am going and getting new clients. Who's a partner out there who can help me offload some of those maintenance activities, whether that's a person or a new tool? So I love that idea of purposefully setting aside a time of calendar, a calendar time in your annual plan, whether it's monthly or quarterly, that says we're going to focus on these. I would just recommend that you prioritize based on, what is the most immediate need. And again, what will get you to achieve those outcomes.
Perfect.
Yeah, good points, Carrie. It's funny. So, you and I obviously work together a lot. It's a lot. I feel like you're talking directly to me, but I know there's 102 other people on this recording. But no, I think you make a lot of really good points. I really like that you encourage us. A lot of the things that we're talking to these small business owners about is the same things that you encourage us to do individually in our organization as we manage our business. So I think a lot of it resonates with small business and how we run ourselves, and how we treat ourselves honestly as our own business, and we all need to have a long-term plan and have long-term goals in mind and a way to get there. So that's great. I appreciate that. It looks like Mark has a question as well. So Mark says, what is the best way to scale my business when I want to remain a solopreneur?
Well, I think that's a great question, and that's going to be tough. I think it depends on the size of business you want to grow to. So the first thing I would recommend, Mark, is what's the outcome you want? Is to remain a solopreneur, do you need a specific amount of monthly earnings? And what is that? And in order to generate those monthly earnings, then what's the top line revenue you need to bring in? And some of that will depend on how much you need to spend on partners and vendors. But I think what you want to do is figure out what's the one metric that matters, which is probably in the neighborhood of monthly earnings for you if you want to remain a solopreneur. And then map out a plan for how can you most cost effectively use partners and vendors to keep your costs as small as possible so that your revenue can be achievable. You probably want your margins to be in the 50-60% range. And that means you'd want sort of 2 times revenue to get to your monthly earnings. Again, that's going to vary, that's going to vary depending on the size of your business. The other thing I would say is think about how you set up a recurring revenue stream, right? So if at the end of the month you need a certain amount of earnings, that gets really hard if you have to win a client every month to make that happen. So there's lots of ways out there that you can use affiliates and partnerships to build a recurring revenue stream. And that way you've already got that in the bank, so to speak, and you can focus on growing new clients, and it really reduces the risk of your monthly earnings.
That's perfect. Thank you, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to go ahead and we're going to move on. We're going to try to get to some of those other questions in the chat, but we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to Carrie and get our next speaker, Nathan Ingram, all set up. So we have a 2 short minutes until we start our next talk. And while we're moving around these pieces, Adrian, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone what your role is at Liquid Web and a little bit about the dynamics of your team. And then we're going to have some moving pieces in the background a little bit. But thank you again, Carrie. Fabulous information. Everyone in the chat seemed very engaged. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it. And I'm serious about coffee in Atlanta.